Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai, good evening. It's 5 o'clock and welcome along to Update on Manx Radio for Monday the 22nd of July 2024. Your half-hour roundup of news on and from the Isle of Man today. Coming up, millions of pounds worth of PPE destroyed. Sir Mark Cavendish says he's likely raced his last race. And some charities say they're concerned about the financial pressures being faced by families over the summer holidays. We'll also keep you posted on anything to watch out for travel-wise. And as ever, your thoughts always welcome. 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's join Chanel Suku now for the Man Benham News headlines. Fastamai, Chanel.
Fastamai. Manx Care has destroyed nearly £2 million worth of personal protective equipment since the start of the pandemic because it's gone out of date. However, it's unclear how much of this figure relates specifically to PPE bought in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Plans to extend a housing estate in Crosby by an additional 18 properties have been deferred by the Planning Committee. It's because the case officer is revising his recommendation from approval to refusal. And Sir Mark Cavendish says he's likely raced for the last time after finishing the final run of this year's Tour de France. The Manx missile completed what he says he's pretty sure was his last ever tour. In international news, the director of the U.S. Secret Service says the assassination attempt on Donald Trump was the most significant operational failure in decades. Kimberly Cheetle is answering questions in Congress following the incident just over a week ago. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, who many expect to become the Democrat presidential candidate, has spoken for the first time since Joe Biden's decision to pull out of the race. She made a confident statement saying, "Together, we're going to win this." And it's emerged the scrapped Rwanda asylum policies cost the British taxpayer more than £7 million. The UK Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, told the Commons, "It's the most shocking waste of money I've ever seen." Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Grumayed, thank you, Chanel Suku there. Now, the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Variable cloud and some bright or sunny intervals this evening, then cloud thickening tonight with a few showery outbreaks of rain, light and variable winds settling northwest and freshening overnight, and a minimum temperature of 12 degrees. But look at this, dry with lengthy spells of sunshine tomorrow as the moderate northwest falls light later in the day, maximum temperature 19 degrees. Variable cloud on Wednesday with some bright or sunny intervals for most of the day, then cloud thickening later with a few outbreaks of rain, mainly moderate southerly wind and a top temperature of 18 degrees. Sunset tonight at 9:33, sunrise tomorrow at 5:17 a.m.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
SMS Trading, new and second-hand furniture, from flat pack to fully built. See our range at Unit 24, Gladstone Park, Ramsey. All-island delivery and man in a van service available. Call SMS Trading on 315 151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
Visit Ramsey Craft Centre at Church Walk St Paul Square for beautiful yarns, fabrics, buttons, craft kits, patterns, in fact all you need for your craft works. Open Monday to Saturday. Visit Ramsey Craft Centre St Paul Square or find us on Facebook for opening times, news and offers.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now approaching 5:05. As Chanel mentioned in the headlines there, Manx Care has destroyed nearly £2 million worth of personal protective equipment because it's gone out of date. Christian Jones has more details for us.
The health body has told Manx Radio that was from the start of the pandemic to date. However, it is unclear how much of this figure relates specifically to PPE bought in response to COVID-19, as pandemic purchases are not recorded separately from regular purchasing. Where possible, expired PPE has been retested and recertified to European standards by an accredited company. This allows it to be used beyond its original expiration date. However, the cost of these tests is unknown. All PPE, whether used or expired, is destroyed at the island's only incinerator. Manx Care also donated PPE to private enterprises and charities to maintain critical functions during the shortages. The donations were not recorded separately and their quantity cannot be identified. High demands during the COVID-19 outbreak forced the Isle of Man and other countries to pay significantly higher prices for equipment. Throughout 2020, £7.87 million, excluding VAT, was spent by the Department of Health and Social Care on PPE. Manx Radio has requested an updated total spend from the start of the pandemic to date.
Thank you, Christian. All those details available at manxradio.com. Now, did you hear this today? Manx cyclist Sir Mark Cavendish says he's likely raced for the last time after finishing the final run of this year's Tour de France. The 39-year-old won a record-breaking 35th stage win at the event this year, moving clear of previous record holder Eddie Merckx. The Manx missile told BBC Breakfast this morning that the change in route for this year's race meant he could soak up the atmosphere one last time.
Like yesterday, normally we finish with a stage on the Champs-Elysees in Paris. That's normally the traditional end to the Tour de France. But obviously with the Olympic Games imminent, we couldn't finish there this year. So we finished with a time trial from Monaco to Nice, and that's like it takes the pressure off me having to deliver on the last stage. So I could kind of enjoy the last day, ride in, enjoy the time with my teammates, enjoy the time with my family, and soak it all up. You know, it was emotional. The day before was the last mountain day. It was the day I had to get through with my teammates, and we haven't had a sprint for almost a week. So actually, just to finish the Tour de France, that was the challenge in itself. I didn't need to. There was no, like I said, no sprint in Paris at the end. It was just more for pride, for getting through arguably the hardest sporting event in the world, and a race has given me everything I have in my career, you know. So to show the race the respect it deserves was pretty important, just to finish, absorb it, and as well as the highs, you know, that suffering is what makes a race special, and it's what grows you as a person, isn't it? So to feel that one last time is important as to feel victory one last time, I guess.
And what an impact he's had on that event. Mark Cavendish there speaking to BBC Breakfast this morning. The time now 7 minutes past 5. The Department of Infrastructure's failure to implement the so-called Living Streets scheme in Douglas, despite Tynwald declaring its support for the project on 2 separate occasions, is a source of huge frustration in the constituency. That's the view of Douglas Central MHK Anne Corlett, who questioned DOI Minister Tim Crookall on the matter at this month's sitting of Tynwald. She says government inaction on the issue is letting those who voiced their opinions down.
Just total frustration. I think, obviously, I displayed that at the time. This is exasperating. You know, with this is something that's been agreed. A 20-mile-an-hour limit in residential areas has been through Tynwald, last administration, this administration, fully supported, unanimously supported, and we're still not there. Now, I will say the DOI took a really good engagement consultation session around a scheme around Ballacameen. They really did engage with residents. Hundreds of residents actually turned out to All Saints Hall to engage, gave them loads of feedback. Now, what I will say is that not all of what DOI were proposing went down well. That's fine. But 77% of the respondents asked for a reduction in speed. Now, as I said in Tynwald, you know, when I had a supplementary to ask, there's a tagline on the consultation hub. We asked, you said, we did. Well, they did ask. What can we do to make your area safer, more livable? We said, reduce the speed limit. They did nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'm just trying to actually make them do what people want them to do. This isn't even about me. This is about people responding to a consultation.
In his Timor reply to Mrs. Corlett, the minister said the work could be carried out in 2025/26, but subject to funding being available. Some charities have raised concerns that parents who are already facing financial pressures will struggle more over the summer holidays. A Little Piece of Hope founder Helen Shepherd says they've seen an increase in parents asking for help for items like clothing. She told Chanel Suku the pressure of finding cheap activities, saving for uniforms and providing the school dinner meal is going to place a bigger financial burden on some this summer.
We've had parents come to us asking for help with items more than anything, so clothes and things like that. I think if you only have to look at Facebook to see a lot of people struggling, and when you've got high costs of childcare, high cost of food, it's really difficult for parents in general.
Now, how does something like the summer break add on or add that pressure on for them?
It's a bigger financial burden, no matter whether you are a working parent or a stay-at-home parent. A lot of parents, obviously, who might get free school meals will not have that to fall back on. I think at one point over lockdown, the government did put food vouchers into place. That was only for a short period and that stopped. I think for parents, that was a real help, and things like that the government should really put into place. But not only for parents who are on benefits and families who claim benefits, but also for your average working parent. You know, a lot of people will end up spending a lot of their wages on childcare or on food, and then not having anything left for activities to even think about activities.
Helen Shepherd, the founder of A Little Piece of Hope, speaking to Chanel there. Well, if you're concerned about the financial pressures you might be facing this summer, 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com and let us know. Turning to the business news today now, Business Isle of Man wants to hear from the owners of companies that sell through digital platforms or their own websites. It says it's working to support local businesses in the digital marketplace after receiving a selection of feedback, and so it's launched a survey. It's the first stage of this work, and it will be to collect insights on the challenges business owners are facing with various platforms to help improve their online sales experience. It's inviting all businesses that are currently operating, have previously operated, or have attempted to operate in the digital marketplace, either locally or off the island, to take part in the survey. The deadline for that is the 12th of August. The latest stock market report with Ramsey Crookall. Now, oil prices dipped today after Joe Biden announced he would not seek a second term as US president, and while investors watched for more signs that US interest rates could be cut as early as September. I can tell you a barrel of Brent down 0.53% to $82.21 today. Meanwhile, gold prices edged up today as the dollar weakened in response to President Joe Biden's decision. And while the market geared up for Friday's US personal consumption expenditures data for further clues on the timing of interest rate cuts. And UK government is to scrutinise £5.3 billion Royal Mail takeover. The new Labour government is set to look closely at that takeover. The Royal Mail owner, International Distribution Services by Czech billionaire Daniel Kretinsky. At the close of the markets, the FTSE 100 up 0.73% to 8,215. The DAX up 1.53% to 18,450. The Dow Jones a short time ago up 0.32% to 40,417. The S&P 500 up 0.85% to 5,552. And the Nasdaq up 1.16% to 17,929. British pound sterling trading at 1.2915 US dollars and 1.186 euros, and gold down 0.55% to $2,386.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m. is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio. Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Heading over to the roads now then. In Onchan, Corkills roundabout has reopened to three-way traffic. There is still some road marking work to be completed there. This will be done in open road conditions in the coming days in time to avoid peak traffic flows. In the south, from today until Wednesday, the Balakillawi Road and the Slog are due to close for 3 days for the installation of road studs. The closure will be from the Russian roundabout through to the Round Table, 9:30am to 3:30pm each day. In Douglas until September, there's resurfacing works on a stretch of Annika Road from Bearcam and Close Kennish. The DOI says equipment was sent to the site today and preparation work will start from around 8:30 tomorrow morning. As well in Douglas until Friday, temporary lights on Loch Promenade, 9:30am to 3:30pm for window replacement work on the Lloyds building. In Laxey until the 30th of November, temporary lights on Ramsey Road at the Minorca Hill Junction, 24 hours a day for 3 separate phases of drainage installation, and temporary lights on Pinfold Hill until the 18th of August near the turn for Lonnon Church Road, 24 hours a day for work on the pavements there. In Ramsey until Friday, 24-hour traffic lights on May Hill for patching work, and near Peel until the 24th of August, closures in phases on the Ballabooey Road from water main work. And in Castletown until Wednesday, patching works on Queen Street, so there is a diversion in place. And in Colby until the end of this month, closures in phases on the Ballakilferrick Road for water main work. Flights this evening seem to be all on time, and on the sailings, the Manannan due into Liverpool at 5 to 6, and the Manxman's arriving back from Heysham into Douglas at 8 minutes past 6. The time now, 17 minutes past 5, and MHK says the decision not to allow Tynwald members to use government's consultation hub for non-government legislation is unfortunate. Michelle Hayward had asked for those moving private members' bills to be able to use the facility, but her motion was defeated at this month's sitting of the court. Afterwards, she spoke to Manx Radio's political correspondent, Phil Gaughan.
They always used to. They have done over a number of years, and it was withdrawn as a route about 2 years ago now. And I thought that was unreasonable, and I thought it should be reinstated. There were comments made about blurring the lines between Parliament and government, but I think that was actually relatively easy to overcome. How you brand it, how you label the page. It didn't seem like they were reasonable challenges. And my concern is now that we are requiring Tynwald to spend probably £10,000 a year in order to be able to set up a parallel service, where actually all of that money comes from government revenue anyway, whether it comes via Tynwald or whether it comes via a government department, it's all coming out of the same original pot. And I just feel like we're wasting money now setting up something parallel rather than using our resources to the best effect.
And of course it's not just the system that's effectively going to be a double handled system. You also have to have officers who have experience and knowledge and training, presumably, in how to handle the data that is provided in a way which is secure and doesn't result in members of the public's rights in relation to their personal information being mishandled.
Yeah, I think the evaluation that's been done by Tynwald officers was actually the software that runs the government consultation hub is set up for the purpose and is the best product. We're just unfortunately now in the position where government have kind of ring-fenced it and said, well, we're using public money to pay for this, but we're not going to allow this other part of government, in the wider sense, to be able to access it. And I think that's really unfortunate.
You can hear more from Dr. Hayward on Agenda with Phil next.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
19 minutes past 5 now. Government's record on public sector housing is under fire from Arbury, Castletown and Maloo MHK Jason Morehouse. He told Phil that housing issues were one of the main concerns in the run-up to the last general election, but to date, very little has been done.
60% of the way through the Parliament, and if you reflect back on why people chose us, housing was top of the list. There was no reference to the Bishop's vote, there was no reference to assisted dying, a little bit about green issues, nothing about wind turbines. And yet, when you actually reflect on where we are and what we've done, housing has been such a minor consideration. And we've got things like today where we're actually looking at the thresholds. I brought a motion 18 months ago saying these haven't moved for 4 years. We need to do something. We got a shift then, so we've only had one shift in 5 years. And they wrote an updated document today, which really doesn't take us any further forward. And you're thinking, what is actually going on here?
The minister was very robust in defending his position and basically said there's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes and you should understand that and not criticise. And indeed, you were a member of the department for 4 years, and what did you do about it?
That's it. And reflecting back in terms of the last change prior to the one following my motion was in 2019 when I was in the department. But it was frustrating when it became very personalised. And at the same time, there's that frustration that the people wanting to get onto the housing waiting list have got major concerns that the actual thresholds aren't actually reflective of income levels. If you're a couple earning the minimum wage, working full time, you won't get access to it. At the other end, if you're two brand new police recruits, you're not actually going to be able to hold on to that house because you're going to be earning too much. So we've actually got a really strange system where we're supposed to be supporting, helping people with housing, but at the same time the people who really need it are actually not getting access to it. And if they get access to it, their long-term access is going to be questionable. So it was a difficult one. And I did say it was more of an administrative task we're doing this morning rather than actually look at the problems and finding solutions.
Schools on the island have broken up for the summer holidays, and as the weather hopefully brightens up, there may be some beach days ahead. With that in mind, the Isle of Man Coast Guard has been popping into assemblies in recent weeks to give advice on staying safe in the water. I asked Andy Mulhern, Coast Guard Operations Officer, what's prompted it.
We've been receiving a rather alarming amount of reports of people swimming in and around the harbours, and the particular danger is people swimming in close proximity to vessels. A swimmer in the water is incredibly difficult to spot from the wheelhouse of a boat, particularly if the water is a little bit choppy. Just this week I was reading some fairly terrifying statistics. If a swimmer comes into contact with a propeller on a vessel, there's a 20% chance they're going to become an amputee and a 20% chance of death. So there's some real serious dangers that are very easily mitigated. Don't swim in the harbours. We've been receiving reports, particularly teenagers jumping in off the harbour walls and swimming in and around the harbours.
This advice, it covers a wide range of things. What are the general do's and do nots?
As far as the open water swimmers are concerned, these are people who tend to swim a little bit further off the shore. They're generally not a big concern of ours. They're normally very well prepared and very knowledgeable about our seas and our sea conditions. If you are swimming further offshore, we always recommend you wear high visibility hats and also use a tow float. Our advice is never to swim alone, and always make sure that someone on land knows where you're going in the water, where you're coming out of the water, and how long the swim is going to take.
On a typical year, how many call-outs does the Isle of Man Coast Guard get to incidents with open water swimmers and people engaging in water sports in general?
Open water swimmers and people in and around the harbours, the statistics are we receive around about 10 calls per year. We're working with the Department of Education at the moment. We're getting in and around the schools, trying to educate children and the parents as to the dangers, and we're hoping to further reduce this number.
Andy Mulhern, Coast Guard Operations Officer there. Now, if you're out and about on the Redna Follen this week, keep an eye out for Lizzie Crotty and her mum Janine. They're planning to complete the walk over 6 days to raise funds for a trip to Antarctica as part of a women's leadership programme called Homeward Bound. Lizzie hails from Hobart in Tasmania, but now works in London as Head of Development for Australian Wildlife Conservancy UK. And the Isle of Man is a special place to her family, as she told Simon Richardson.
The Isle of Man is really important from a family relation viewpoint. So my grandfather was born in Liverpool, and during the war, so from 1941 to 1945, he was sent to the Isle of Man to live in Peel. So, he was sent with all the kids during that time. So he often reflects on his time that he spent in Peel, and it was really, really fond memories for him. And he always, he was so pleased when he found out that Mum and I were coming over here to do the walk.
Now, you're walking the Radnor Follen over a 6-day period with your mum, who's with you here in the studio. Now, it's got a serious meaning behind it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. So I'm doing a fundraising challenge with the intention of raising funds for a Women in STEM leadership course I'm undertaking. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And historically and to present day, women are vastly underrepresented in these roles, particularly at leadership levels. So Homeward Bound was created, it was an initiative to help elevate more women into leadership roles in STEM.
Well, if you'd like to support Lizzie and her mum on their walk, you can find the link to their fundraiser via manxradio.com. Now, 5:25, and we're joined by Manx Radio's sports editor Rob Pritchard for a look at today's sporting news. Fast am I, Rob?
Fast am I, Lewis. We'll start with football, and FC Isle of Man have ended their pre-season preparations on a positive note after holding National League North side Radcliffe FC to a 3-3 draw at the Bowl yesterday afternoon. The Manx side led 2-0 at half-time, courtesy of strikes from Luke Murray and Charlie Higgins, before the visitors struck back through Luca Navarro, Jake Thompson and Evan Bands shortly after the restart. The Ireland host then grabbed a late equaliser as Adam Adebayi scored from a tight angle in the 84th minute. For FC Isle of Man, it means they finished the weekend tournament with a draw and a loss from their 2 games. Their new NWCFL Premier Division season starts this coming Saturday with a home tie against Chatterton. Elsewhere, Manx hockey stars Sienna Dunn and England have secured bronze at this year's Euro Hockey Under-21 Championships. The former Valkyries player and the national side claimed 3rd place at the tournament held in Terrassa, Spain from the 14th to the 20th of July with a 1-0 win in the 3rd-4th place playoff match against Germany on Saturday. It was revenge for England against a German side which had beaten them 2-0 in the group phase earlier in the tournament. In the lead-up to their eventual finish, England had also claimed 2 victories in Pool B with an 8-1 hammering of Austria and a convincing 5-0 victory over Ireland. And elsewhere, Isle of Man athletics competitor Regan Corrin has narrowly missed out on claiming a medal in international competition over the weekend. Taking part in the European Athletics Under-18 Championships in Banca Bystrica in Slovakia from the 18th to the 21st of July, Corrin went on to finish 4th in the men's high jump event with a best clearance of 2.05 metres. Only the eventual top 3 managed better at 2.08 metres, with Sweden's Svante Svensson claiming gold, while silver and bronze went to Antoine Anchak of France and Vuj Salaya of Serbia, respectively. Whilst it means he missed out on a podium, 2.05 metres equals Corrin's personal best in the high jump, which he set at the Isle of Man Track and Field Championships 2 weeks ago.
Go on, mate. Thank you, sports editor Rob Pritchard. And that's it for updates this evening. As always, you can listen back via the podcast at manxradio.com, uploaded within the next half hour. Up next, it's Agenda with Phil Gaughan, and after 6, Chris Kinley's here with Greatest Hits, so stick around. I'll be back with update at the same time tomorrow.